Hi guys, Jackie from Famished Farm, and we're back in the kitchen this week making 3 new recipes for summertime. First up, a pineapple barbecued pork kebab. This one was excellent, guys. I found it at diethood.com. And then from allrecipes.com, a turkey kofta kebab. And this one you don't even need skewers. You can make it right on the grill or even in the oven. And finally, from carlsbadcravings.com, my first time making one of their recipes, a grilled chicken kebab. Come on, let's get cooking. Our pork kebabs start out with 2 pounds of boneless pork chops. Now, I found a meat sale and I don't have boneless pork chops. I have bone-in pork chops that really need to be trimmed up. But I've got about a pound-ish of pork chops here that I'm going to take a couple minutes and get the bones out and trim off this excess fat. If you have been grilling this summer with pork loins, this would be awesome with a pork loin also. In the future, in the summertime, that is going to be my pork of choice, is just buying pork loin and then cutting it into cubes. But any basic cut of pork will do in this case. It's just you might have to do a little more work to get it ready for the skewers. Another thing I've learned this summer is that I really do prefer marinating the meat before it goes on the grill or into the kebabs. So the recipe calls for just seasoning the pork and vegetables with adobo and then adding salt and pepper and then putting them right on the grill. I am, however, going to do what I've done all summer long: cut the meat up, put the marinade in the meat, and put it in the refrigerator, generally about 4 or 5 hours. All of the little pieces of meat and bone are going to go into a bag I've got in the freezer ready to make bone broth. And then I'm just going to reuse the bag that the pork came out of the freezer in as the bag for my marinade. For our sauce, I'm going to add 1 cup of barbecue sauce. The recipe calls for a half a cup of pineapple juice, but I'm going to switch out kombucha that I've got brewing. This is a cranberry flavored kombucha. I think it'll work out perfect. And then the recipe calls for salt and pepper, although I'm going to skip the salt because of the barbecue sauce and just go with the pepper. Next, it calls for garlic paste or minced garlic. I'm just going to use a little bit of my dried garlic. Then I mix that up and it's going to go into the fridge. Now, in the recipe, they call for reserving a half a cup of the barbecue sauce for serving and then brushing the skewers as you cook them. You guys do you. And then I'm going to make a change also. I'm not going to put the vegetables in with the meat, and that is just simply because I didn't have a big enough bag there. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare a green pepper and an orange pepper, and you can see I've substituted a yellow. You could use 2 green peppers easily if you wanted. And then a half a tablespoon of adobo, which I don't have right now, so I'm just using a half a tablespoon of a pork rub that I've got, or whatever you might use a rub. Use whatever seasoning you like. Now, my pineapple has sat on my countertop for too long, and there is a bad spot in it, so I'm just going to work around it. And basically, we've decided that 1 pineapple is enough for grilling twice. So I'm going to just cut this and then separate it into 2 nights worth of grilling. So half of whatever is left of this pineapple after I cut out the bad spots goes into the dish with the peppers. If you've never cut up a pineapple before, get on YouTube, find one of those videos that show you how to do it. Basically, twist off the top, cut all of the hard stuff on the outside away from the core, and then I usually cut it into quarters, take the hard core out, and then the rest is all good to eat. And then remember, I didn't have enough room for all those veggies in with the meat, so I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil on them and some of my Trader Joe's everything but the bagel seasoning. It looks like I even skipped the seasoning, but guys, do whatever you like on this part of it. If you follow the recipe, this won't even be necessary. And then I put a piece of plastic on these, and these will go into the fridge to wait for later too. And here's our favorite grill basket from Menards. I'll put a link in the description. I'm sure you can find one at your home improvement store or any of your big box retailers. I spray it with cooking spray, and then I pull out my stainless steel skewers, and I'm just going to alternate the pork with the fruit or veggies. And it's that simple. Just continue till you run out of meat and veggies. If you run out of one before the other, no worries. Just thread what you've got left onto a skewer. My husband handles all the grilling for me, so I've let him know to get the grill on. They suggest grilling at medium high. The recipe directions call for grilling these skewers for 8 to 10 minutes, turning occasionally until the pork is cooked thoroughly and vegetables are tender and charred. Now, I can tell you that my husband did this for longer than 20 minutes total. I think he said about 22 minutes. I didn't write it down, however. He tends to cook to well done because he doesn't like raw meat. And he rarely uses a meat thermometer. If I come out with it, he'll let me use it, but he just does it by feel. So we're going to get these on the grill then, and I'll show you what they look like after. There it is, delicious. Now, don't forget to pull your barbecue sauce out of the fridge if you are the one that reserved it for later. I think Rod in this case did grab, because he liked that barbecue flavoring, he did grab the jar of barbecue sauce and put a little on his plate. But I really like this. This was excellent. This is one we'll keep making. And I do like also in her notes to the recipe, she lists how to store it, how to freeze it, how to reheat it. And we did have leftovers. The leftovers go on to our salads at lunchtime. Again, highly recommend this one. This will go into the rotation. These turkey kofta kebabs are not a kebab as I typically think of them, as something on a skewer cooked over the grill. In this case, she does cook them over the grill, but they're more like a little patty, what my mom used to call hamburger steak that they would put on the grill. We're starting with a pound of ground turkey, which is mostly thawed. I'm adding some onion that was supposed to be minced, I will tell you. And then I'm supposed to add a 1/4 cup of fresh cilantro, which I'm just going to substitute a tablespoon of parsley, then a large egg, and 2 cloves of garlic. And I do have some garlic I'm using up in the fridge, so we're going to go ahead and use that. The recipe calls for chopped green chili peppers. I have a jar of jalapenos that I'm trying to use up, so I'm just going to use what I've got here. It ends up being about a teaspoon. We don't like things really hot, so this is just perfect. A 1/4 teaspoon of ground coriander, a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, and a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder. Then salt it to your taste. You will use more if you like salt. We use a little just for health reasons. Then I'm just going to use this spoon to just lightly mix that egg up before I get in with my clean hands and start mixing this together. Now, as per usual, I don't read the directions, and this calls for 12 kebabs. I don't see that till the very end. I'm going to use my grill basket, but with a little piece of foil on it, just to make the cleanup and the flipping easier. I'm going to just use my ice cream scoop, and I make 5 biggish kind of patties instead of the 12 little ones that they call for. Now, I will tell you that the cooking directions, we did 5 patties for on the, let's say, the 25-minute end of things, and to be honest, they were a little dry. So if you guys do 12 patties, definitely check it after about half the cooking time, so about 10-12 minutes, because those I think are going to cook much sooner than these big patties that we did. So this was very good, and you can see this must have been on a busy day because yes, we had green pepper or pepper slices and carrot slices as our side dish. Now, I have kept this in the rotation. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that I'll add all of the spices that she did. Mom's good old recipe for hamburger steak on the grill with ground meat, some onions, salt and pepper, and an egg will work just fine. I do recommend using the foil on your grill. That just will make cleanup and the flipping of these little patties much easier. I have seen recipes for kofta using skewers, so I might try that next time just to do something different. And the final recipe we'll be cooking together today, a chicken kebab. Now, I messed this up right from the start. I pulled 2 bags of chicken out of the freezer thinking one was chicken breast and one was chicken thighs. I was going to do something different with the other bag of chicken, but have my husband grill them both at the same time to save us a little time during the week. And guess what? It was all chicken thighs. And I was so messed up that I just went with doubling the recipe. But I forgot to trim the chicken thighs and cut them into chunks. So these are full chicken thighs going in here. What I'm doing is adding, calls for 1/3 cup of olive oil. I'm sure I use less. 2 tablespoons lemon juice, 2 tablespoons soy sauce, 2 tablespoons balsamic is what I'm doing right now. And then coming up a tablespoon of Dijon, which I'm using up this container of Dijon, so I'm having to beat on it for it to come out. And yes, I doubled the chicken, but I am not doubling the marinade. I think there'll be plenty of marinade for, basically this is 2.5 or 3 pounds of chicken breast. That was 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm going to skip the salt it calls for. 1.5 teaspoons or 1/2 tablespoon of onion powder. The same for garlic powder, although I use less. A teaspoon of dried thyme, although I use about 1/4 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of oregano. A teaspoon of paprika. 1 teaspoon of basil. Then the recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. I'm just going to use a couple shakes of cayenne and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Mix that up. Now, this is a good idea, and I just don't do this, but the recipe calls for reserving some of the marinade, 2 tablespoons in a small bowl, for marinating while you're grilling. I don't do that. The other thing is to remove 3 tablespoons to a separate bag or bowl for your vegetables. That's a great idea. I should do that. I need to start thinking about that. But here, all the marinade has gone into my double recipe of chicken. And then marinate for 4 to 8 hours. Again, mine's probably closer to 4 to 5 hours. Now, I'm going to do the vegetables then separate. This is a sweet Vidalia onion that I'm chunking up. The recipe called for a large red onion. Use whatever you've got on hand. The recipe calls for 3 bell peppers. Use whatever color you've got available. This happens to be a massive green bell pepper, so I'm going to use that. And then this red pepper, and that's all I use. That is plenty for Rod and I. In fact, we usually have some roasted pepper left over that we can put on our lunchtime salad. And then add a little bit of olive oil. This is probably 1/2 tablespoon, a tablespoon. And here's my everything but the bagel seasoning. And then mix that up. Guys, I forgot to say, and I lost the film for the zucchini. 2 small zucchini, 1/2-inch slices. That's in there also. Then pop that into the fridge. Next up is her optional but recommended Parmesan yogurt herb dip. That is a 1/4 cup of yogurt. I'm making a 1/4 recipe of this. A teaspoon of grated Parmesan, a teaspoon-ish of lemon juice, a couple teaspoons of parsley. I don't have minced chives, so I'm just going to use a sprinkle of onion powder and a little shy of a teaspoon of minced dill. And then cumin and a tad of salt. You might need more. I use a lot of pepper. Mix that up and then cover it and put it in the fridge. And don't forget to serve it over your chicken kebabs. Now, I really like that she lists your both grilling and oven instructions. I'm going to prepare my grill pan with some cooking spray that just makes cleanup a breeze. And then I'm going to thread all these onto skewers, but of course I don't trim too much, and it really was okay fat-wise. The fat mostly rendered out, but I trim these up good and then start threading. And she recommends medium-high heat for the grill and grilling for 8 to 12 minutes until you reach 160 degrees. Rotating, of course, as needed to keep the chicken charred but not burned. She also gives you good notes on storing and freezing both the raw or the cooked chicken, and reheating instructions too, so very thorough. Now for me, this double recipe, and basically it was probably a pound-ish, a pound and a quarter of chicken thighs in each of the bags that I used. This made enough for 3 full meals, or we put 2 of them in the freezer, but I've since pulled one of them out and I'm using them for lunches. And one of the recipes is enough for 3 salads, 3 days of salads for both Rod and I. So this made plenty, and it was absolutely delicious. Oh, and guys, we packed the grill basket full. So on the skewers that are just going to be on the open fire, I'm double skewering them. So it just makes it easier to use the tongs to turn them on each side. Guys, this was another excellent recipe, and I'm going to check out her archives for other things to make. And when I say her, I really shouldn't say that. It could be a guy making this. There's just no recipe, no name on the recipe. Now, let me just give you a tip too. Did you know there's about 1 billion ways you can spell kebabs? And I usually spell it K-A, but if you search K-E, you'll come up with different recipes. And then if you end it with Bobs, B-O-B-S, you'll get one, but you can also end it with B-A-B-S and get more recipes. So just vary up your Google search that way, and you'll come up with some great summertime grilling recipes, which is what I've had fun doing this summer. Guys, I hope you enjoyed those new recipes. I am going to link 2 more recipes I made this week. One is tried and true, the pizza dough recipe from scratchpantry.com. And I didn't make it into the peach preserving video, but a fantastic recipe from foodnetwork.com for a fresh peach cake. That was very good. If you're liking our content, please like and subscribe and leave us a comment down below. We're always in search of healthy recipes. I'd love to know what your favorite one is. Thanks for being here.